Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night at the local time. First we're going to start with Donetsk direction. Today we have a lot of very interesting videos and details. And first we're going to start one more time with the battle for chemical plant, for the Terikon, for the landfill on the north part of this area. The Russian sources published a very powerful, very interesting video, one of the episodes of attack on this territory using the armored vehicles, tanks, armored fists. On this video we can see the first days of clashes. Probably that event took place somewhere on the 10th or on the 11th of October. On this video we see how the Russian tanks were moving along the roads from Novosilovka Drugaya to Krasnogorovka, further from Krasnogorovka in direction of the landfill and the northern part of Avdiivka. And on this video, the things that we can make few conclusions based on this video, and the most important ones are that the Russians were using really significant number of armored vehicles, up to 50 units, pieces of different type of tanks, of armored personal carriers. The Russians were using significant number of firepower, the manpower and so on. And the most important, obviously, that during that attack we didn't saw the infantry. For example, on this scene we see at once 4 tanks attacking the hill with the tanks. Some of them were equipped just with regular like shields, defense. Some of them were equipped with different anti-drone weapon and so on. So that was an attack, and according to geolocations of movement, the Russians were moving something like here in direction of from Velika Novosilovka through the fields, and then the final point of the video was somewhere in this area. On all over the road, the Russians were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions on the landfill. As we discussed, as a result of that attack, some sources are saying that Ukrainians were forced to step back from the landfill, that the Russians managed to clear this territory. Later we got update that the Russians were forced to step back, and currently we have the gray zone above this territory. From the Ukrainian side we also got the video how the Ukrainians were trying to bomb and attack the Russians during their movement. But anyway, the thing that we can see and the conclusions that we can make is that complete total difference between the Russian attack in direction of north of chemical plant of Avdiivka and the Ukrainians' attempts to attack in direction of Robotyne. And the main difference is the level of losses. Obviously the Russians have losses. It's obviously, we can't say that the Russians haven't lost even a single tank or something like this. Yes, the Russians are losing equipment because this is offensive operation, but if we compare this operation with the Robotyne offensive Ukrainian operation, of course the Ukrainians had maybe 10 times more losses, destroyed vehicles, and so every single tank that entered Robotyne fields was destroyed. But when talking the Russians, just maybe 10% of armored vehicles were destroyed as a result of counter-artillery fire. Also, we don't see the usage of FPV drones from the Ukrainian side, Lancet drones, and this is a very big minus for the Ukrainian defense forces. They don't have enough of tools to attack the Russian armored vehicles. The only tool they have is probably artillery forces, but artillery is not accurate type of weapon, and sometimes it's not so effective against the Russian forces. Interesting updates are coming from the line between Novobakhmutovka and Verkhnetoretskaya. Basically, if you remember a few days ago, as a result of some attack or some operation, the Ukrainians managed to destroy the bridge that connects Panteleimoniivka and Yasinovate. The bridge was destroyed, and that bridge was the main logistic arteria, pipeline for the Russian forces. Currently, this bridge is destroyed. There is no traffic. Obviously, the Russian engineers tried to solve the issue by building some pontoon bridges, but currently the Russians are forced to use their forces, their logistic, just using one settlement, the settlement by the name of Verkhnetoretskaya. Every single movement currently, every single redeployment, attack, supply and support goes exactly through this area. And currently this is the most well concentrated area of Russian forces, and the Ukrainians understand this well. And today the Ukrainians published another video how they were bombing and attacking the concentration of Russian forces in the city using FPV drones and so on. So this case, this tactic and this this scenario is very useful for the Ukrainians, and we can say that as a result, as the battle for Avdiivka, this is a small victory of the Ukrainian forces. This is a very smart step. They forced the Russians to concentrate their activity and logistics just through one city, and of course this gives the Ukrainians significant benefits and possibilities to concentrate their very small FPV drone army and artillery drum exactly in this area, which increased the losses of Russian forces. Furthermore, the Ukrainians continue concentration of their forces in the vicinity of Keramik, Novokalinova, Alexandra, Pantelemonivka, in this area, Yurivka. They try to concentrate forces and with one purpose, to counterattack the Russians in their flanks, in their back, and to force them to step back, or at least to slow down their offensive operation in the vicinity of the chemical plant. The Russians, of course, do have some forces in this area, and furthermore, the Russians control currently the situation. The Russians published the video how they were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces using FPV drones, using grenades. We see the concentration of Ukrainian forces, and they just try to pin them down, try to control the situation, and not to allow the Ukrainians to attack them in their back while the Russians are moving in direction of Avdiivka. Because if the Russians miss this attack, they may appear in a cauldron and might be encircled in this area. So this is a very important area that the Russians need to keep control over. Interesting updates are coming from the southern direction, from Krasnogorovka. Today the Russian sources published another video how they managed to probably establish control over another checkpoint and stronghold of the Ukrainians in direction of Marinka, Georgievka and Krasnogorovka. As a result of artillery strikes, as a result of 500 strikes, the Russians managed to destroy another fire position and of Ukrainian forces, and probably later the Russians established control. This might be a part of Russian operation. And during October, the Russians have already established control over the tree lines in this area, and that was probably the next step of the Russian forces. But without any big full-scale offensive, just the situation to develop the foothold on the north of Marinka and to improve own positions. When talking about, there were no more updates about Donetsk. Of course, I have a strange weird feeling about Avdiivka. Obviously, everybody has, because we expect more videos, we expect more details from this area, we expect more clashes, we expect finally some results from Berdichi, Stepova and Toninka and Severna, but yet we haven't received nothing. And the question is how long the Russians are able to support this level of pressure. It's very difficult operation, no matter the scenes with significant number of armored vehicles. Sooner or later armored vehicles will be ended and the Ukrainians will be able to start the counter-offensive operation. Situation is really weird, so we need to wait. Obviously, I expect and I believe that soon we're going to receive more updates from this territory, more progress, some even captured settlements, but for now we need just to keep waiting. When talking about Novomikhailivka, the Russians continue storming the city. After a few days of clashes, the Russians managed to discover the Ukrainian fire positions, the Ukrainian ammo depots, and during the previous 24 hours they continue reducing and destroying the discovered positions. And for example, on this video we see the results of strike of Russian self-guided missile, Lumur, probably within a distance of more than 15 kilometers. Very accurate strike, and as a result of that strike, another position of Ukrainian forces in the central part of Novomikhailivka was destroyed. But no videos or no geolocations regarding any attempts to attack the city on the ground. Updates are coming also from Robotyne area, and on this area we also see the Russian concentration and the Russian activity. And the Ukrainians currently are completely focused on Kopany. It's very far from Robotyne fields. Probably the Ukrainians took a decision even to change their plans and to stop any activity in this area. And probably the Ukrainians in time will be forced to step back from Robotyne and they will try to concentrate their attacks to closer targets like Nestyryanka and Kopany, and they have already started this. From the other side, we see the Russian activity in the area between Verbova and Novopokrovka. On this direction, the Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces who are moving and running and heading from one position to another along the tree lines. And on this video, for example, we'll see how the Ukrainian stormtroopers or sabotage group was moving along the tree lines. The Russians discovered them with a drone with night vision equipment, and as a result of bombings, that entire group was destroyed or at least stretched and forced to step back. And this is very important video, this is very important area, because this is not the only video from this area during the previous 2 weeks. The Russians are pretty concentrated in this area, and something tells me that if the Russians continue the same way, if the Russians continue their concentration of fire the same way, obviously sooner or later they will be able to establish control over the entire territory and cut the Ukrainian forces in Robotyne. If we increase the number of updates, we're going to see that on this area exactly we see significant number of updates, and we see the Russian concentration of fire, and like as a possible movement might be like this one. The Russians need to establish control over just few tree lines to the east, and this situation will completely change the entire configuration of the front line, and this is going to be another news, but it's going to be not Avdiivka news, but it's going to be Robotyne news, and the Ukrainians will be forced automatically step back from this direction as well. Some updates are coming. We received from Kupiansk-Lyman front line just a few videos that we need to use for geolocation purposes. For example, the Russians published the video how they managed to discover and destroy another Ukrainian artillery system. There are very heavy clashes on this direction, but yet we don't see any progress on the ground, and we are able to adjust the map just based on some videos in geolocations. And one of these video that can help us to adjust the front line right from Lyman direction, and I have already adjusted this video. The Russian sources published the video how they were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces using TOS flamethrower systems in the vicinity of Lyman. So basically on this video we can see that the Russians haven't managed to move very far from the city, from this village Lyman. They control just the village and the forest that located on the south of Lyman and around that, and the forest that surround Lyman, at least from the south, southwest and southeast, is under complete Ukrainian control, which give us understanding of the movement, and that there is still a lot of job to do if the Russians want to continue offensive operation in direction of Kupiansk. I believe that just to fight for this part of the forest, the Russians need around a month or even more, maybe 2 or 3 months with the same speed. Furthermore, we got some more videos and more details regarding the support and supply that of military aid, that military help, that military rounds that North Korea sent to Russia. Significant number of ships, a significant number of railway trains are moving from North Korea to Russia, and probably the current offensive operation of Avdiivka is the results of cooperation of North Korea and Russian Federation. So the entire Avdiivka offensive operation was supported by North Korean rounds and let's say munition. Of course, not like 100%, but obviously this help gave the Russians complete superiority over the Ukrainian forces, and obviously this will lead sooner or later to significant victory and complete collapse of the Ukrainians on that direction. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.